because of the Catholic thing, any kind of queer want felt wrong. It felt destructive. I took this opportunity when I got fired to really sit there and say, either I can boo-hoo and not do anything about it, or I can try to discover what being full-time would look like. I believe that I'm the Simon Cowell of drag in this community. I can objectively look at somebody and see where your heart, your craft, and your determination aligns together to say, you deserve this shot. Two parents that had no kids at that school complained that I was there, and it went to Rush Limbaugh. It literally went international news. I got called an axe murderer by Rush Limbaugh. Seeing somebody that exists like you is ridiculously powerful. And when you see somebody that exists like you doing something that you can see yourself doing, it's the most inspiring thing that you're going to hold on to.
Hello and welcome back to the Queerest podcast, telling the fiercest stories. This is Queer Talker and I'm Ben Cicchetti. This week I sit down with the incredible and the inspiring drag performer Jessica Lahore. But before we get to that conversation, I've got a very quick favor to ask. Wherever you are watching or listening to this episode, hit that subscribe button. It's one click and it's going to make a massive difference. It's going to allow me to grow this podcast and it's going to allow me to bring you the best and the queerest episodes every single time. So in advance, thank you. Now to my conversation with Jessica. Miss Jessica Lahore, if you're nasty, we will start with our Queer Panic rapid fire set of questions. You just respond with the first thing that comes to your mind. Starting with, what was the first album you ever owned?
Now that's what I call music, number 9. There's like 78 now, but number 9 was the first one that I owned.
I love that. Now it comes up a lot on this, which I love. Like, I think it's a lot of people's kind of first introduction to records.
Right? So I couldn't say like one person's specific album, but one of a conglomerate for sure.
Yeah. I think that's great. What is your, or would be your lip sync for your life song of choice?
Okay, there's two. I know it's just one rapid fire, but it's either Pictures of Your Dick by Rachel Bloom. It's hilarious. It's very fun. It's very exciting. Or Amazing by High Fashion. It's really sassy. It's got good flow to it. It's real dancey. Love the lyrics.
I love that. Well, as everyone knows, we have a Spotify playlist that we add all those songs to, so they can all go and check those out now, which I love.
Gosh, please add the Pictures of Your Dick one.
Who was a childhood celebrity crush of yours?
It is Cameron Diaz when she walks in wet to the bank in the mask in that red dress and she's hitting on Jim Carrey. Immediate crush, hands down.
Yeah. I actually just watched that movie the other weekend, so very, very fresh in my mind.
Fresh in my mind to this day.
What is your biggest red flag?
I wasn't sure if you wanted this to be like a drag red flag or like a human red flag, but I'm just going to go generalize. People that have a zero awareness, like social awareness, like no emotional or social awareness of the people around them, immediate red flag. Like for super easy things, like this person might need a door held open, or this person doesn't seem okay, or something very general. Like you should be able to tune in to the surroundings of people around you.
Yeah, I agree. That kind of lack of awareness is a big red flag for sure. What is your favorite queer movie or TV show?
I kind of want to go. I feel like it's claimed by the queers. Devil Wears Prada. I know the second one is coming out. It's not necessarily a queer cult classic. If you're going queer cult classic, it's probably going to be Tu Wong Fu. If you're talking like drag and queer, but claimed by the queers, Devil Wears Prada. I'm very excited for the second one.
Yeah, I saw the musical in London. It's fantastic. So I'm all about it. If you were to compete on RuPaul's Drag Race, what would be your go-to snatch game?
I have thought about this many, many times, but I kind of want to go with Larry the Cable Guy as one option. I know that sounds really insane, but
I can see it.
That's where my spirit comes from. Okay, I look like I'm rushing a sorority, but I'm really a redneck deep down in my soul. And then Miriam Margolyes.
Yes,
I'm obsessed with her interviews and just she's like a more tame Tammy Brown from the show. There's just something about her that just is off the charts wild, and I think I could embody her.
Yeah, I agree. She's Miriam Margolyes is like a dream guest of mine for this podcast as well.
Really?
So
Oh, well, tag
I
her,
think
tag
she's
her.
yeah. We'll make it happen now. Who is your ultimate queer icon?
I really, God, I feel like modern day queer icon. It's Gaga.
Mm,
I've been here with her a little monster since the very beginning, even before she was taking off. I'm researching some of her earlier stuff, but if I'm going like iconic diva, like she paved the way, it's probably Shirley Bassey. I'm obsessed with her voice, her stage presence, her Hollywood glam, and the way that she
mm.
puts it out onto her live performances. So those two, from now to old school.
Amazing choices. Who is one person you would like to hear on this podcast? Such a selfish question of mine.
Miriam Margolyes.
Miriam Margolyes. Thank
Miriam
you.
Margolyes, we're calling you. We need you on this podcast. I'll take anything that you're on a podcast for. You're just perfect.
Thank you. Yes, and now I can tag her,
Yeah,
and we'll make it happen.
just the soundbite.
Um, exactly. Yeah, look out for this soon. Final of our queer panic questions. What is one word you would use to describe your childhood?
Confusing.
Confusing. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, we
You
can
know
pull
how
on that
hard it
thread a
was
little
for
bit
me to
more.
stick with one word for that one? Very, very hard. I'm a this, and that kinda girl, so just confusing.
Confusing. I like it. So let's pull on that thread a little bit because, as long term listeners know, I have this theory that to understand someone today, you first need to understand them as a young person and as a child. So you say confusing. What should I know about you as a child or a teenager to understand the Jessica that sits in front of me today?
Oh my god, I would say ridiculously sheltered, very Catholic family,
Mhm.
reserved. My dad was very involved on making sure his kids turned out right the way he wanted them. So, like, can't pick things up with the left hand, have to pick things up with the right hand. He would only have
Right.
right-handed kids. Very controlling over what activities we would do in school, or where his levels of interest would be involved with, like what he thought was important for us to grow up on. Family was super close and then broke really quickly once we moved as a kid. Super sheltered, didn't come out as queer until 23. Really tumultuous relationship with my parents and extended family. Um, really didn't discover the type of person that I was, or went through large periods of like self-hatred and body dysmorphia for like the first 10 to 15 years after like of my middle ground era. I don't know how to say my teens. There we go.
Yeah.
Middle ground teens. Um, I feel like it's important to know that I've always had a weird, like sick, twisted sense of humor in some ways. And so drag allows me to bring that out in the most appropriate ways. Um, uh, really, I would say ultimately shelter and like very naive to the world around me growing up. So once I was able to move and get to college, I learned a lot really quick, and that's really escalated to where I am now.
And then in that kind of experience of, you talk about this kind of relatively sheltered childhood, teenage years, and then obviously going off to college. When do you remember the first queer LGBTQ plus person you became aware of, either in real life or kind of in media?
I do, only because I remember them, like, in the box in the back of my head. When I'm hearing this question, I'm like, "Oh, this unlocks, like, the first person." I remember at one point being maybe 3rd or 4th grade and seeing my gym teachers, both guys, making out in the hallway, but not understanding anything about that because they both had wives, and I remember that very, very
Okay.
specifically. I
Scandalous.
remember watching American Idol, and one of the contestants, the finalists was, he had a mohawk, but he was, I don't know if he was queer, but my mom would unfortunately yell queer at him at the TV, and I didn't know what
Okay.
that was, so there's that. But when it comes to like first out proud like mentor in college, I have my mentor even today. His name is Kyle Oldham. He taught me really what being proud and loud and queer and exciting was. And then I guess like my first queer interaction when I was told like guys could like me was freshman year of high school, maybe sophomore year of high school. I had a guy tell me he liked me, and I'm like, that's weird, that doesn't seem possible.
And then I guess hearing that from another guy, what was the kind of, a lot of us kind of remember that first feeling inside, that first kind of spark and awareness of our queerness. Do you remember when you first felt that inside you and how that made you feel given kind of your family background?
Yeah, it was pretty rough. When I heard that out loud, I didn't even inquire more to adults. I just kept inquiring in my head of that possibility. Although the
Mhm.
internet was accessible during that time, everything was very slowly downloading. So like research on the internet wasn't quite the same. I
Yeah.
think it was a good explanation for feelings that I might have been feeling inside or been trying to explain or make excuses for in the past. Why was I interested in at the sleepovers with the boys, finding ways to be curious and inquisitive with each other,
Yeah.
um, things like that. But I because of the Catholic thing, any kind of queer want felt wrong. It felt destructive. Anything from sexual expression, pornography, masturbation to just being interested in guys felt very wrong, sinful, terrible. Why can't I control this? Why do I like this? And so that was like a long period for at least a year until I changed my attitude to being I'm straight, but I'm gonna have gay revenge. And I
Mm.
would like sleep with guys or make out with guys, but I was still straight, but I did it just so I could break their heart. So there's a lot of weird, like, religious trauma that came with a period of my time.
Yeah. So I guess that must have been really hard to unpick, especially when it's also your family, right? And family is important, either biological or chosen. To unpick that, when do you think you first felt authentically yourself? And then when did you feel you could just bring that unapologetically to everything?
I'm not gonna lie, my authentic self probably came in end of 29, 30, like, in the last couple of years. Quite a journey, daily practices, daily, words of affirmation. I feel like sometimes if you're on a path like this, you don't lose old bad habits, you learn how to manage them as you get older, and so I would say 29, 30 was, like, first hard hit of being like, "This is the human that I am, and this is who I'm going to embrace." But even to this day at 32, last 3 or 4 years, there's been a lot of resistance. I'm still pushing through some of those films or some of those boundaries to really become the person that I want to become. I find myself on better days, and then other days I don't know who that person is, and it's a weird feeling to go back to old school mentalities.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then you mentioned, well, we've talked about kind of family a lot already. So when I
Yeah.
say family to you, what do you think of? Do you think of your biological home family, or do you think of your chosen family where you are now?
I have always been a big stickler of just using the terms that fit best with me, and I know a lot of people do too. What I mean by that is when you say family, I do think of my biological family. I think of my sisters, I think of my parents, I think of my aunts, uncles, cousins. When you say chosen family, that is the family that feels closest to my heart. Like that is the family that feels like they've been there for me, love me unapologetically, been through different stages of my life depending on when they came into my life. But I do separate the two. I still give the weirdest respect to like when other people come to me like, "Oh, I'll be your mom." I'm like, "Well, I already have one. She just chooses not to be part of my life. But you can be my loving like mom figure and give me a hug." But I feel weird taking titles from those different categories.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And obviously, we've touched on the fact that Denver is your kind of home base. It's where you
Yeah.
call home. But in 2025, you've toured across, I think it's 15 different US cities, which is
Mhm.
incredible. How would you describe the climate of drag and for LGBTQ plus people as it compares to Denver and then all those cities that you visited?
I learned a lot when traveling across the country, and the last time I traveled was the beginning of 2020. I was doing 32 cities, and COVID shut down. Like I was 5 cities in, and as I was heading to my next place, shut down, and taken from me. So it's been 5 years since I've gotten to travel consistently, um, and so much packed in 1 month to figure out what drag was like and the queer scene was like. And I think that it's been really rewarding to see how powerful all things given with our country in the US happening, that there's still positive, strong, queer forces, whether that be this like 20 to 30-year-old range, or I'm talking about like queer elders. So going to Salt Lake and meeting some of my queer elders that have been working hard in a place that is so conservative and
Yeah.
so anti-queer, but still strong, loud, and proud is really inspiring to see. When I traveled around the country, you could definitely see how drag was appreciated, how it was treated, how queer people were treated by venues across the country. I'm realizing that Denver kind of sits in the middle. We're not some of the worst venues that take advantage of our queer artists. And on the other end, there are venues that are truly partnering with the artists to make entertainment a full benefit for everybody. The venue succeeds, the industry worker succeeds, the artist succeeds, and it's a full circle. And there's not a break in that chain. So I feel like Denver could be doing more. When I'm looking at like the queer culture around, I was thankful not enough to not have to experience any kind of backlash or any kind of protesters or any kind of issues, even traveling to DC or Los Angeles, where ICE agents or just the government's heavily involved. I was not in areas where I saw that prominently, but after talking to a lot of the entertainers in the cities, those things are existing. They're existing in smaller communities outside of that city that are more vulnerable, easier to target, and it's harder going to cities like Minneapolis, or I'd say even DC, where most of the entertainers are people of color, and they have a different experience where every weekend is going to be a different weekend, whether they feel comfortable going out to the shows or their
Mm.
fans feel comfortable going out to the shows. And so they're trying to find ways to reach those people that crave their artistry while still making sure that they stay safe. And that's not something that we're noticing right now in Denver. Um, it's been really rewarding to see how powerful, but also how people are just kind of getting by with a smile.
Drag is so powerful, right? Like, drag has such a role to play in the queer community as a whole. It's often drag performers I hear people talk about kind of often that some of their first experiences of seeing queer people was seeing a fantastic drag performer. So it feels like we need to do as much as possible to protect and empower drag queens, drag kings to continue to do that, right? And is that your sense that the community is behind you and kind of pushing for that awareness?
Yeah, I would say this year more than ever, even while traveling, there's an essence of people feeling the not scared to stay inside, but really pushing themselves to go out and support queer venues and queer artists because every weekend venues are closing down, artists are not able to survive, protesters are becoming prominent, laws are shutting down the ability to express ourselves. So I do believe that that is accurate. I think people are finding ways to support artistry in some way to keep it going.
Yeah. And I can't imagine it's easy. You know, you've been a full time drag performer, if my research is correct, for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And you stay consistently booked without a certain TV show that we may have already mentioned a couple of times. What do you think is the secret to that longevity and success? And I guess also a secondary question to that kind of what is your relationship like with RuPaul's Drag Race and what that is doing for the kind of the drag community?
So I'm gonna kind of answer questions in reverse. I think RuPaul's Drag Race, I will always give it the credit that it is due for pushing and projecting queer voices and faces to the forefront, even bigger
Mhm.
than RuPaul, who runs the show sometimes. People are able to take this opportunity to be seen for their talents, their voices, their how they resonate with audiences in ways that have never been happened before. Do I think as the show has progressed, it has changed and altered what I remember it to be when I'm watching season 6, or even if I go back to season 1, 2, and 3? I think that there's elements of that support the local, stop looking for what's gonna hit hard on
Mhm.
TV and what's gonna be supportive of the show. I think that some of my views on it has changed, and so my relationship is positive. I do the viewing parties. I have submitted auditions in the past. I actively interact with some of the Drag Race girls and everything like that, but I think that there's a huge chunk of the heart that's missing from what I think the purpose could be for the show. Um, and I yeah, I and so in reverse, being full-time for 10 of the 12 years, or a little bit over 10 years, that was a really difficult time. I started in 2016 when I started hitting the ground running really hard. I was working at a job. I walked in to set up. I was a busser server, and after we finished the whole restaurant setting up, they said, "Hey, guess what? We're closed down. Effective immediately, no more. Take what you can, drink what you want, and then you're done for the day." And that really hit because I was struggling financially. I was barely able to afford rent. I had no friends. I was not out. I was closeted. So it was just one thing after another. And I took this opportunity when I got fired to really sit there and say, either I can boohoo and not do anything about it, or I can try to discover what being full time would look like. Nobody was really doing that in my scene. I'm not gonna lie. I humbly take credit for being the first, at least in my Denver, Colorado scene, to being a full time entertainer outside of TV shows and consistently dealing with venues and reputation and consistency with shows. So the 10 years is because I started so long ago. I put in the work and I've been doing this type of schedule that you see, this like 40 to 65 shows a month since 2017. And I got a lot of shit for it. Can I swear? I didn't ask that.
You
Can I
good?
swear?
Yeah, you're
Good.
good.
Um, I got a lot of shit from it from 2017 to maybe 2020. And then post COVID, when I tried to quit, I reformatted my business and it came back stronger and more respected. And it became more respected by other artists. And now we have so many full time artists in Colorado. We have so many people that are striving to do full time artistry. So the growing pains, like any business, sucked. The first 3 years really sucked. As you learn more about yourself, it becomes easier. Consistency and just the repetition of it makes it really like riding a bike. Easy, easy, easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and we actually kind of brushed over this, but actually I'm super curious to get the kind of origin stories. How did you get started in drag? When did you get started in drag? And kind of what was that kind of early journey like for you?
Yeah, I was interested in drag, so I hated drag. I always tell this story because I think it's important. I distinctly remember calling it gross and disgusting, and that's a lot of the insecurities that I had, a lot of the uncertainties that I had with a gender expression or things being okay or not okay, or being interested but not wanting people to know that I was interested in it.
Yeah.
I dated a boy who was super into drag, and I wanted to support him, so we went to a competition about an hour away in Denver, and I watched the show. I watched this queen. She was so beautiful. I was so immersed into it immediately. She did this beautiful ballad and was singing all beautiful. And then she started fingering herself on stage. And I said, I want to do that. I want to do that. As soon as the show was over, and at that time I was like, I only like the pretty queens. I don't like the scary queens. I remember calling Nina Flowers really scary at one point, and now it's like the opposite. I think she's the most immaculate being ever, and all the pretty girls can go eat it. I don't care. Um, but she but we went to Walmart afterwards, got a bra, he had some makeup. I put on all of this stuff and it's like, wow, I love this transformation. And he was
Mhm.
like, you're an ugly woman. You should never do drag again. Uh, And,
Brutal.
12 years later, I feel great. I'm doing
Yeah.
wonderful. And I think a month after we broke up, he got put in jail for embezzling. So I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful, as an
Okay.
ugly woman, if he thinks that still. But that was the first in. I tried it out that night. My university had a drag show once a semester that I decided to participate in, even though I was terrified. I got up on the stage. I had a local queen see me and say, hey, do you want a chance at a local bar? And I took
Mhm.
it. And that is where it started. It started that one time to once a month to once a weekend to twice a weekend to every weekend to now 6 days a week, 5 shows in a day sometimes. It's crazy.
It's incredible. And it's
I
it's
say I say
so
crazy as though it happened in like a week. That's 12 years of crazy. So
yeah. I mean, I just think it's so interesting how often you mentioned someone kind of giving you that opportunity and kind of bringing you along. We had Ella Day also on the podcast from UK RuPaul's Drag Race,
wow.
and she had a similar experience where it was someone kind of bringing them along on that journey. And I guess that must be something that you are now able to do. And I guess if there's anyone listening to this podcast who maybe wants to get involved in drag or just is super curious, what kind of advice and what do you do for younger people who might be trying to get into drag?
I've been really thinking about this a lot more lately. I've had a lot of wonderful, close people to me that have never before been like, you have a lot of qualities, whether people enjoy them, but there's one thing that I will always respect about you is that you make people feel seen. You make people feel as though they are seen in what they do online, even if you're present or not, with a message, with a voice memo. And I think that's because of the experiences that I had. I felt seen in that performance. I was offered an opportunity. I consistently for at least the last 10 years have produced so many events and shows, given hosting opportunities and nothing in return. It's simply because I believe that I'm the Simon Cowell of drag in this community. I can
Nice.
objectively look at somebody and see where your heart, your craft, and your determination aligns together to say you deserve this shot. I can see you doing bigger things. You need someone to believe in you. You need something to show you. And that's just in my drag community. That's artistries, that's go-go's, that's dancers, that's anybody that is doing what they love. I'm inspired by people at any age doing what they love. When it comes to supporting like a youth generation, I'm one of maybe 10 of many, many, many artists in the scene in the state that actively provides opportunities to queer youth, finding
Mhm.
ways to provide safe, alcohol free, all ages family friendly experiences for kids as young as 3 years old to as old as you want to, if you're a kid at heart, to get up on stage for the first time and showcase what you've got, whether you're straight, trans, gay, whatever you want to identify as. So I feel like that is also planting a seed and watering a lot of these kids' feelings that I had when I was younger of, is this okay? Am I able to do this? And really allowing them to feel like you're in a room full of support, whether you are enjoying it, whether you find out you enjoy it or not, whether this is for you or not, experience it, love it, try it
Yeah.
out.
I love that. And you mentioned, obviously, alongside Jessica Lahore, you also created Miss Jessica, which is
Yeah.
your more PG, let's put it, drag persona, who performs for children and young people. That is so incredible. And I'm so interested to hear about it. How did that side of your drag come about? How does it differ from Jessica Lahore? And what has it meant to you to connect with kids and families through drag in that way?
You know, when people ask me this, I've been doing all ages events since the very beginning. I've always had the business mindset of you need it done, I'll figure out how to do it. And if I can't, then I'll refer you. But, that's
Yeah.
how you build your rapport of what you're capable of doing. All ages audiences, family friendly shows. Where it hit harder, in 2018, I went to a career day. Different careers came into this middle school, and you talked about how literacy, education, reading, writing, impacted the career choice that you made. It was not
Yeah.
a show up and say, "You should be a drag queen," or "You should do this."
Mhm.
I went in, I talked about how going to college effectively helped me become a drag queen and how I used the skills that I did with reading and writing and how I use them today. I read a book on not bullying or anti-bullying to the kids, like a small passage from a book, and then I did a Q&A, and all of the Q&A stuff were their questions and curiosities of how amazing and magical I look and what it's like and what it's like to be a drag queen. People were curious. Well, that took off and became international news within like a week. Two parents that had no kids at that school complained that I was there, and it went to Rush Limbaugh. It literally went international news. I got
Yeah.
called an axe murderer by Rush Limbaugh. It was really cool. He compared me to that, but that kicked it off. I had a choice in that moment to say, am I going to bow out because everyone's so focused on this Lahore thing, this Jessica
Yeah.
Lahore thing, or am I going to figure it out? And so I created a whole different persona that is public, a public page for Miss Jessica, Miss Jessica's services on my websites. I do things with businesses and corporations as Miss Jessica because HR is worried about the language or the name. I do drag story times, drag shows, inclusivity training. I do GSA visits, and it's just progressed since then. I've made it part of the business and more publicly to combat a lot of people saying I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. I think it's so incredible. I went to London Pride this year and they had kind of a family section. And it was amazing to see the joy that young people get from drag performers. And I think it gets there's so much focus on it and there's so many headlines around it. But actually, if you look at the children, they are loving it. They don't have that prejudice in them. They are just loving the experience. Queens are fabulous and they just kind of love that. And I guess that must be your experience. And how does it feel when you see kids and I guess also parents, especially given your kind of history with your own family? How does it feel when you see those families really embracing what you're doing?
I think that's the key. Most of my experiences, although I enjoy watching how the kids are expressing themselves, I've gotten more interactions with parents coming up to
Yeah.
me saying, "Something's been off with my kid. We've tried talking to him. We're trying to be supportive, but we can't relate in the same ways. When we come to this show, which happens once a month, they are the most outgoing that they have ever been. They're the most confident they have ever been. And so when I hear that, it feels as though parents are struggling to find sometimes the right tools and words when they're not queer on how to relate to their kids who might be experiencing queer thoughts. Um, and putting them in the space that is a safe, kind of like very comforting, welcoming space allows them to feel like this is normal and this is
Yeah.
okay. And parents find it easier to relate with their kids. And for example, one of those kids in 2019, that I Regina Roars is her name. She was a youngin. She's still doing drag and she's still supported by her parents years and years later. And you can just see a complete shift from this person that wouldn't even say hi and introduce themselves to this person that is literally now bringing their sibling up with them to do a duet for a pride performance. And it's just really, really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. I love that. I love the phrase, be the person you needed when you were younger. And it feels like you are being the person you needed when you were younger, that person to
Yeah.
show you that it is okay.
We forget that representation matters in any way, shape, or form. The visibility, whether you have an interaction, seeing somebody that exists like you is ridiculously powerful. And when you see somebody that exists like you doing something that you can see yourself doing, it's the most inspiring thing that you're going to hold on to. It's like meeting your hero or seeing your hero because you have the ability to take all those inside thoughts and say, wow, someone else is expressing the way I'm feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of visibility, you have built a following of over 150,000 people on TikTok and Instagram, which is incredible. And as listeners know, I launched this podcast with 600 followers on Instagram. So I knew it was going to be an uphill battle to build that audience. So for you, what's that process like of building that audience? And what advice would you offer to queer creatives like me trying to grow authentically online?
Um, Gosh. Um, 9 years in or 10 years in, I decided, at 10 years that I was gonna stop, um, not stop, but I was going to change my focus on where I was gonna invest my time and energy into my business. And as I was trying to self-manage, create my own promotions, do my own, tedious work, book my own shows, do everything, post online, I realized that my strengths could lie in the business side, and I needed to seek out people that were Team Lahore, essentially. How can I find people that are experts at what they do the same way that I'm an expert at what I do, that can dedicate the time and energy to my voice and letting them know and educate them on who my voice is, who the person I am, so that they can translate that to the public. And so 10 years in, I decided to hire a marketing and social media team. Some Michael and Oscar from Proud Communications, they're phenomenal. And we took about 6 months to learn what that relationship was going to look like, what worked and what didn't work, how we were going to support each other. And we've been going strong ever since. So when I hired them on, I was at like maybe 16, 17,000 followers on Instagram, very few, maybe a little bit more on TikTok. And after hiring them, not only was I able to focus on content creating and the visions that I had for putting content out and how I wanted it to be seen, I had people that were professionals in editing, lighting and sound and production to help put that out, learn the algorithms, which are impossible for me to learn. They don't make any sense. So that was one thing, is kind of getting off of my getting my head out of my own ass and saying I can't do it all.
Yeah.
Give up some control and some power and say, how do you find people that you can work together? That's how a company grows. And so now I have a publicist and a merchandising manager and a social media marketing manager and a personal assistant and these people that I've built relationships with help build Team Lahore, and that's helped with following, helping understanding social media. But the second thing that I'd say is you got to stop. As hard as it is, numbers can't matter to you as an entrepreneur in the social media world. They have to matter in terms of milestones and making sure
Yeah.
things are being seen, but you can't focus on how many views, how many likes, how many impressions, how many reshares. For me, my social media is an instant resume that anybody can go to. You should take 10 seconds to scroll and see a variety of the things that I can offer as an entrepreneur. And I want that to be from the messy to the polished to the podcasts to my fun little excursion videos to the emotional and vulnerable to the reviews. I want people to see that I have my hands in everything, but the voice that's coming behind it is single streamlined, one human being. That no matter what you're watching, you're getting the same persona, the same person through all of it. And I stopped worrying about the content. I stopped worrying about, is this edited correctly or is this, polished correctly? I'm so mindful. I don't put crap out, but I'm very intentional about what I put out just as much as trying to remove that obsession of what I'm putting out. So I simultaneously work with my team. I post and they post. You can tell which ones I post because I'm more anal and more meticulous about everything, and you can see what they post because it's fun and it's carefree. And I have a rule with them that they can post. We approve all posts with me, but any performance videos, I say just post. Don't even let me
Yeah.
see it because I'll tell you not to because I'm so self-critical
Yes.
of my work that I don't want people to see it. And then it posts and people love it. And of course, people are going to be critical, but you have to get your mindset out of everyone's gonna judge or hate not what you like, but you're gonna impact some amazing people with what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And as a marketing professional, I can tell you all that was a branding and marketing masterclass you all just got, because that consistency is incredibly,
That's
incredibly important. We've kind of there's been a thread that's come through this, which is around drag and the fact that it has kind of been it's always been political, whether it wanted to be or not. Do you see your work as activism, or do you prefer to frame it as pure art and entertainment? Kind of what's your relationship like with drag from that perspective?
it's a yes and I've been questioning this a lot more this year. I have been very humbled and called out indirectly and directly about having the platform that I do and how I'm using it to project issues that are happening across the world, happening in the US, happening locally in my own scene. And although I could have in that moment argued, oh, I'm doing this, this, and that. Obviously, the people that are expressing this are not seeing the right things for me. So again, it's
Yeah.
taking your head out of your ass for a little bit and just saying, okay, what can I do more? And I do focus on the escape. I'm not gonna lie, when I look at myself and my influence as an artist, I have gotten more messages about thank you for clearing my timeline, my feed up of so much horror, so much tragedy, so much anger, so much sadness, so much heartache, so much, weight on my shoulders with a funny video of you eating sausages or a video of you doing makeup or you a video talking about how you're dealing with things that are happening in the
Yeah.
world. And so, what I've been doing recently, probably in the last 2 months with my team, is finding a balance of how can I show my political sides and how I can be supportive of the communities that I am more than I have been and more prominently vocal about it, while also honoring that I am for a lot of people that escape from reality, that escape of that there's goodness and there's fun and there's laughter still to exist, and that's even at my shows. Finding a moment in the show to talk about what's happening in the world in a way that's engaging, while then saying, "All right, now we can get back to some fun, but you need to know what's going on."
Yeah.
Do I have a strong answer for you about what things I'm doing outside of sharing GoFundmes, donating tips, uplifting certain communities in my own community to have those voices resharing and reposting? No, because I feel like on some topics, my opinion on it isn't the point. My right or wrong approach is the point. This is
Mm.
wrong, period. Not this is why I think it's wrong. Trying
Yeah.
people sometimes don't need to hear your reasons. They don't even care. But verbally saying this is what I think and this is how I feel reassures people that I'm a safe space.
Yeah. I love that. We started this conversation
Yeah.
talking about young Jessica. Let's revisit them because if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? And would it be different if I said, what advice would you just give to a young LGBTQ plus person today in 2025?
Quit drag. No, I'm joking. Quit drag, don't do it. Um, if I could give, I'm gonna do both because that's how crazy I am. If I were to give myself advice as a younger queer person, it would be to come out earlier. I came out
Mm,
at 23. I wish I would have come out at 16. That's easily 9 years of work that I could have avoided, 9 years of trauma, 9 years of therapy I could have gotten into discovery. And so I feel a decade behind my queer colleagues that have been out
right.
at that age. I feel like I'm now as a 32-year-old entering my 21 to 23-year-old queer self because of the where I'm placed at. So if I could say anything, come out sooner to my younger self. Come out sooner, and work on loving yourself a little bit harder. It's easier said than done, but to this day, find ways to embrace the person that you are, the voice that you have, the skin that you are in, the flaws that you see. Um, Embrace them. Don't make fun of them,
Mm,
don't mock them, don't try to change them, try to grow with them, and that'll be really great. And I guess that could apply to any queer person, any queer youth, but, um, my I'm going to steal this from a queen in Denver. Her name is Shirley Delta Blow. If I could say anything to queer people as a whole, it's really showing up exactly who you are and finding the people that embrace how you show up and don't criticize the way that you show up. She says it very fluidly. If you walk into a room and you are authentically yourself, weirdly, when those people in the room see you being yourself, you're giving them permission to be themselves. So easier said than done, but learn it earlier. If you're a loud person, be a loud person. If you have no patience for certain things, then have no patience. If you don't like whatever, just be that human, and naturally the universe will gravitate those people to your circle. People will resonate with you.
Yeah. I love that so much. I think it's incredible. And we will include links to all your incredible social accounts, to your website in the show notes of this podcast. People should check you out if they haven't already. It's incredible. I love all your content. But most of all, and I said it a little bit earlier on, I do love the phrase, and I kind of try and live by the phrase, be the person you needed when you were younger. And I think that's kind of what I'm taking away from this conversation we've had, from kind of your childhood to where you are today. I do genuinely believe you are being the person that you needed, but also the person that so many of us needed when we were younger. So thank you so much for everything you do for the drag community and for the entire LGBTQ plus community.
Thanks. I appreciate the acknowledgement, and I don't do it to hear that, and it's also really rewarding when people acknowledge that, so thank you.